yeah, it's actually quite a hard job to describe what I do, so I save you from that. So I'm Becky Perryman. I'm emerging talent producer, and I work across both Passion and Strange Beast Studios. My job is quite large in kind of what I cover. So I pitch produce for Passion Pictures, and at the end, sort of towards the end of the talk, I'll just talk about a little bit about pitching. And then for Strange Beast, I produce. And then for both of the companies, I talent scout and look after emerging talent and find directors to put on our roster and stuff like that. So over the kind of many years that I've worked for the two companies, my passion has really been about kind of supporting people taking their first steps into the industry. I think when I kind of first came into the industry, I found it quite hard to find kind of role models, especially kind of creative role models. There was lots of amazing kind of female producers who I really inspired to, and I think that's what led me into what I do. But there wasn't so many kind of female creative roles, and I don't think there was really people kind of helping champion kind of young females going into the industry, into the kind of creative fields. If you were good at organising, you automatically kind of pushed into the kind of producing role. So I think that has really sort of spurred me throughout my career to really just try and help and to really champion emerging talent and to really help people in the kind of minefield that it is trying to take your kind of, whether you're taking your first steps as an animator or as a director, or even, and a lot of the people that I've worked with over the years have kind of been people taking their first steps in kind of pre-production, character design, concept art and stuff like that. So because I've worked for these companies, I think for 7-ish years, I don't know, all merged into one. So that's kind of been the kind of thread that's kind of carried me through what I do in the different roles. And through that, we have always sort of informally kind of worked with supporting, especially animators who want to get into directing work, and we've always sort of championed them and helped them kind of try and get their first kind of commercial projects in and stuff like that. And from that, I really wanted to create a kind of place where we can showcase those people and shout about those people that we wouldn't be able to do necessarily on the kind of main rosters. And I'll just talk a little bit about that and why. So sort of the main rosters, most people that will be on main rosters, and that's not just Passion and Strange Beasts, that would be like Nexus, Blink, will have a fair amount of commercial work on their portfolio. And what I found with emerging talent, if you were to put that person onto our roster and they've got one piece of commercial work and then lots of kind of their own things, they kind of get lost in amongst those other people, and people don't really understand what it is. And by kind of having a place where we can house them and really shout about them, I felt like that would give them more opportunities. And also, informally, we're working with people, and I think Caitlin McCartney is a perfect example, who's now on Strange Beast. We were kind of working with her informally for about 2 years before she kind of had the body of work to kind of put onto the Strange Beast roster. So I think for me, over the kind of time, kind of sort of trying to champion emerging talent, I felt like we needed a place to house that. We've had kind of it in other guises, but actually next week we're going to launch the Greenhouse, which is going to be a emerging talent roster that sits directly between the two studios, Passion Pictures and Strange Beast, and it'll be a place where people who have maybe one piece of commercial work and then lots of shorts or stuff that they've done can sit on there, and we can really try and help develop them and help them in that process to kind of get more commercial work. I don't know how many of you know much about the studios. It's just a quick kind of overview of the studios. So Strange Beasts, as you sort of see circling here, is much more kind of craft-based, kind of quite sort of trendy, design-led. It's as you can see here. And then whereas Passion Pictures is much more kind of story-led and focus-led. So generally on Passion Pictures you get a lot more of the kind of big CG kind of character numbers, Pixar stuff like that. So I actually do have a first look at the Greenhouse. It's not quite finished and I've got some issues with it, but I'm going to share it with you anyway, just so you get a sense of some of the people that we're going to be putting on it, and I can kind of, as you can see here, these people that are probably a bit more kind of Strange Beastie vibes, and then we've got people here like Izzy Burton and stuff like that, who's much more kind of like story-led, character-based, kind of more earnest kind of work. Some of these people we actually have been working with for a fair amount of time, as I say, kind of on the sidelines without kind of being able to shout about them. Mads Brony is one of those, and actually he'll probably go on to the Passion roster fairly quickly. Anyway, I'm kind of going on in a bit of a tangent, but that's just to give you a bit of a sense of the greenhouse. Also what we do, and this is the bit that I actually do want to change how it's laid out, just to make it a bit clearer to click these things. So again, part of my role is helping and developing emerging talent. So I run the Passion Prize, which is a prize that we do for RCA students, where we fund between 1 and 3 films kind of for their second year film, because they don't get much funding, and we will make selects, and also we will help them develop those artists and kind of build up a relationship with them as they go through their second year and their final thing. So there's just a few of the people that kind of have been through it, and then like Laura's going on to the Greenhouse, and Anna Menzares went on to our main roster, and stuff like that. So we try and work with the directors that we champion there moving forward. Also, a lot of stuff that we do that we just don't get to shout about anywhere in the kind of the websites that we have is direct development, where we try and and lots of studios do this, where they invest in their directors and they really try and support kind of personal projects, like a personal project that we did, which some of you will know will be Anna Ginsberg's Ugly and stuff like that. So there's things like that which will all go on there, and internships again. So we run sort of 3 internships a year. One usually sits with me in sort of pre-production, doing character design, stuff like that, and then we have others in the studio. So I'm just kind of giving you a kind of a broad overview of kind of the initiatives that we have. I guess what you guys really want to know is like, how do you kind of take your steps maybe as directors? So I kind of want to give you guys some tips and advice, and I think also the Q&A will be really useful, so don't be afraid to kind of ask me lots of questions, because I'm kind of just giving you a kind of gloss over of kind of everything that I kind of do, but I think that's the opportunity to really kind of ask me any of your burning desires, where it comes from production stuff, how to kind of contact people, stuff like that. So I'm going to give you some tips, kind of how, or things that we might look for, people that we might look for, and kind of how you might get those opportunities in. And I think I also like to talk to you a little bit about not just kind of sort of why we've kind of decided to create Greenhouse, but also kind of what we aim to do for those people and how we want to help those people. So actually maybe I'll start with that first. So I think, and I'm sure you guys know this, you are the people that, that are doing this, that it's you might be freelancing a lot as an animator, and you have done, either you've done a master's or a degree, and you've got some shorts and you've done some things on the side, but you just don't know how to kind of take those steps into the industry, and it can be as a director, and it can be really daunting, and it can be really scary, and I think it's also just hard to know where to look for kind of advice and how to do it. And I would say like a lot of it is kind of about being brave and about really putting yourself out there, but also a lot of it does come down to kind of constantly creating and constantly putting your own work out in the world, because we've all got to pay the bills, and we've all got to take on those, you've got to take on crew jobs, you've got to animate, and it's so hard to then at the end of the day go home and then do more work. I know how hard that is. That's an incredibly hard thing to do, but what I would say is it doesn't have to be, you don't have to create like a 3-minute thing that's going to win loads of awards to kind of get attention, to get people interested in your work. You can create GIFs, you can create, and I know a lot of you will probably be already be doing this. You can create shorter pieces which kind of really help keep your portfolio going. And I'm sure a lot of you will be sitting there when you're working as crew, just thinking, you're listening to the director and what they're doing, thinking, oh, you know what? If I was doing it, I might do it differently. And I'm sure lots of you have that. So I think when those thoughts happen, those are the kind of chances to sort of take those into what you would personally do in your own projects. And I think social media has opened up the playing field. Also it has made it hard. There's lots of people, but I think it's also made it easier for you to kind of express yourselves and get your work seen in a much more just quicker way. So I think Instagram is something that we all use. When as a talent scout, I use it a lot to look for people, to look for what people are doing, to look to what people are putting out there. And the animation industry is fickle. It's all about what your last piece of work is. And if you can keep, doing those 10-second little GIFs, keep pushing yourself, trying out ideas, experimenting, setting yourself a little 10-second GIF. If it looks like shit, it doesn't really matter. You haven't spent a year putting all your love and all your energy into something for it then just sort of fizzle out once you've put it out in the world. So it's a place where you can really push that. And I know I'm probably, preaching to the choir. I know a lot of you probably already know this, but I think, you guys are kind of on one side of the kind of room in a way, and I'm kind of on the other. I know it's literal at the moment, but in terms of I'm the person looking for the work, and you're the people trying to get your work shown. So I think those are my tips. Just keep being brave, and also so many of you work as crew, right? So many of you know producers, so go and talk to them. Go up to them and say, "Do you mind going for a coffee and having a look at my work?" A lot of times I'm unaware that crew want to do directing. There's so one of the Anna Manzara's projects that I produced last Christmas has some great model makers and crew on that, and it was only kind of after a couple of months did I find out that they were actually really wanted to be directors themselves. And it's that's your opportunity to really talk to those people, to get some advice, to be actually, that's kind of what I want to do. And I know as women, we find it really, we all have imposter syndrome. I think it doesn't matter how high you go up in the pecking order or whatever, we all have imposter syndrome. So I know it can be quite hard to want to put yourself out there, but if you're making those connections as crew and you're making those connections already, then that's your opportunity to kind of ask people to go to have a look at your work. And I think also the industry, for someone who's employing people, it is often you're taking a chance on someone that you don't know. And if you've had a coffee with that person, or if you've had a conversation with that person, you're more willing to take a chance on them, because one, they're not an arsehole. That's always a bonus. And then one, you're starting to build up that level of trust and that level of connection, and then that really helps someone go, actually, I met that person for coffee and I really like their work, and I'm going to give them a chance on that, And often it will be really low budget stuff, but that's your way of getting your first step into directing and stuff like that. And I also think it's, and I think a lot of times you'll be trying to take on maybe music videos and stuff like that to kind of get your first steps into directing, and that's a great thing to do. But I think I've seen lots of cases of people who are being screwed over, and that's not just music videos, that's on smaller budget projects, of the fear of asking about money. It's awkward, right? I think everyone finds talking about money awkward, and I think as people kind of trying to build out your portfolio and take on your first kind of projects, always talk about money up front when you're talking to a client. Make sure that you are it's clear on what what the budget is, what you're going to deliver them, so your duration, what it is, the format of it, how it's going to look, the schedule of it, and just make sure that's all really buttoned down in email. You can also do something called a deal memo. I don't know if any of you know about deal memos, so you might be able to find some templates online, and they just basically, it's just bullet pointing everything that you're agreeing to do. So what it is, so say 1 times a 1 minute 2D hand-drawn animation. It's going to be, I don't know, you're going to do it for Instagram, so you might do it by 4 by 5. So you're bullet pointing all those things that you're going to do, and the kind of what the schedule is, kind of check-in dates and stuff like that. And I think it's really important to make sure that you've agreed that, maybe getting them to sign it as well, and what the money is and the payment terms. So try and get a bit of money like up front. Try and get at least 25% of the budget up front, and if it's a really small budget, say 75% up front and then 25% after you deliver. And make sure you get that really buttoned down, because I've seen so many people starting out really get screwed over and have jobs pulled halfway through and then not get paid. So like that's a big issue. So definitely talk about money, definitely like write about that, get that signed and get that bullet pointed down. So pitching is an art form. It literally is. So I remember when I first joined the new business team in pitching quite a few years ago, and you could put together a couple of doodles, a paragraph, and the director's reel, and you could win jobs off that. Now it is like it's pre-production. It is insane the level of like work that you need to put in to do it, and I think so. Just to kind of take a little bit step back about why we have to pitch, why companies have to pitch, why directors have to pitch. So obviously, you have your client that wants to sell a product. They go to an advertising agency to come up with the branding and the ideas behind it. The agencies then come to production companies to kind of pitch on the work. And in the UK, companies, it's 3 companies that are allowed to pitch. In the US, it's kind of free for all. Music videos, it's free for all. You never really know how many people are pitching on music videos. So that can be sometimes a bit of a risk, because if you've got other people, like say you've got 10 other people pitching on the same job, the chances of you winning it just become less. So anyway, it's just useful to know that sometimes. So yeah, like I said, pitching is an art form, and we have to pitch on that work to the agency. There'll be 2 other companies pitching on that work, and then hopefully we will win that work. What happens is an inquiry comes into us from an agency, and we will then look at their brief, look at their script, look at the kind of style guides that they kind of put together, and then we'll think about who in our roster we think will be relevant to kind of put on that project, then we go into pitch mode, and pitch mode is all about showing the client and the agency you're kind of proving you're showing what they want to buy, like they want to see what they're buying, basically. And I think pitching is a really useful skill for kind of everyone, whether you're going in as a kind of commercial director, whether you're looking for film funding. The UK has really stepped up its game when it comes to film funding. BFI have gone a long way to kind of change that and put a lot more money into animation in the UK. So you'll have to put a pitch together for that. And also, if you're a more experimental kind of director or artist, you might want to do an artist residency. So all of these things is doing a pitch is really useful, because it's basically showing your intent and kind of what you want to create. Would it be useful if I showed you a pitch? Yeah, I'll show you a pitch. So this is a pitch. Last Christmas, I can't remember. This is a pitch by Kira and Constantine, who are 2 lovely directors and humans who are on Passion roster, and this was for a Christmas film that came out last Christmas. So basically, it is pre-production, and I don't know how many of you kind of do pre-production, but you're basically trying to show your client exactly what they're going to buy, and this is what they bought. And what I will do is I will show you, actually, I think it might be useful to see the final film, because you'll see how much, like, it's almost exactly the same, you know, from pitch. And often pitching can be really quick. Pitching, sometimes we've done it in 3 days, turn around a pitch. If we're lucky, we'll get 2 weeks, but often it's less. So it's like you've got to do this in a real quick time. This is actually done by the directors. They modelled this up. So a lot of it is kind of like agency fluff. I'm not going to lie. It's just like, yay, we're so excited to do this, such a cool project, which, you know, you are, but you kind of got to say it as well. And actually a lot of this is, well, it's all in German because the agency were German, and Konstantin is German, so that made sense, but you don't really need to know about the writing. But what you've got to do in a pitch is you've really, and I think this is really useful if you're doing film funding as well, everything that's in here kind of applies to film funding, is you've got to show someone who has no idea. Often a lot of agencies not that versed in animation, they're more versed in animation, so you've got to kind of in a couple of pages kind of get your idea across to someone, what you're going to do with their script, how you're going to show it, and kind of where you're going to take it. So we will kind of break down the story, and we will do an animatic. I'm sure lots of you have done animatics, and they're so important to kind of get the story across, which I'm sure you all know. Is that big enough? That's not big enough, is it? Hang on, sorry. How do I make it full screen? Okay. Like I said, not the most tech-savvy person. God, it's so hard to see on the screen. Just close that. So, oh, computer says no. Okay. Okay. So yeah, storyboards, animatics, hugely important in this part of the process. Character design. So we will hire freelance artists to come up with character design, and those are kind of sketch form, and that's kind of the 3D model that the directors did. And here is some lovely, really charming, cute design. So if you were kind of, if you were a director and this was your first kind of pitch, and you'd probably be like, I don't know what to do. So it is about kind of ticking off story, character design, concepts, art, look and feel and stuff like that. I'll run through it as we go along. So this is the character development. You really want to show to your future client or agency kind of who the character is of the character. And this could apply even if you weren't doing a kind of a character specific piece. If you are say more of an illustrator or designer and stuff like that, you'll want to kind of do some concept art and some style frames of kind of what your look is going to be. And I think pictures obviously go so much further than words. Like you can win a pitch of just one picture, just like hitting it, and the agency and the client just falling in love with that. So visuals is just like a huge part of pitching. Some really beautiful stuff here. It's so cute. Look at that. It's so cute. So then concept art again. So if you're again more illustrative led or design led, you could do a beautiful style frame in your style of a kind of what the animation is going to look like. That's what you want to show. Is you want to show your client what it's going to look like and the story behind that. Just like some really charming, lovely stuff. And then it's also the point of pictures is telling them what they're getting, what they're going to buy. And I think it's also really important with film funding is to remember that you are selling something. You're selling yourself. You're selling your film, and you want someone to actually buy it. You're not just kind of putting it out there and going, why should someone give you $5,000 to make your film? So you are selling something. So you've really got to be very clear and concise in these things, and really try and tick off those boxes of what they might be wanting to look at and what they want to see, and how are you going to do that in the best possible way? How are you going to show them basically the finished piece without actually doing the finished piece? Music, you all know like how much music can change animation, right? It can really kill it sometimes. Sometimes like we don't have control. Often the agency has control of the music, and you kind of get music back and you just think, oh fucking hell, like it's just terrible. But so that how much like music and sound can really lift animation. So it's worth thinking about. And if you are doing a music video pitch, for example, then you'll be thinking about that as well. So that is pitching, and Eloise, who's sitting here, has done many of these for us. She's very good at this. Did you create that one actually? No. Okay. So, and I'm just going to show you the end result because it's so cute and lovely. I can't see. Okay. Yes. Cool.
So this life is given everyone a present, beautiful, shiny and new. Everyone but you. Golden ribbons, diamonds line everyone's path that leads to wide open doors. Everyone's but yours. Wide open doors. Hold on, keep on, even when the road seems very long. Open your eyes, even if it's cold now.
And yeah, because my job kind of covers quite a few different areas, I can talk a little bit about producers and kind of what the producer's role are. I'm sure most of you have kind of worked with producers and roughly might know ish what they do, but probably a bit like, I don't really know everything that they do. So basically, I guess our job, it's mainly shit catching, I feel like. I mainly feel like we're the kind of middleman that kind of tries to kind of keep everything together. So, you know, you will have the client, you'll have the agency, you'll have the producer, and then you'll have the director and the crew. And the producer's job is obviously, you know, things you know already, which is budget, schedule, hiring the crew, but a lot of it is liaising with agencies, kind of being the middleman between the director and the agencies. I sometimes describe us as the kind of the waitresses. Like you've got the chefs, and then you've got the customers, and then the chef gets annoyed, and then the customer gets annoyed, and then you're stuck in the middle trying to like manage that. So a lot of it is about managing people when they're stressed, managing people who react differently to stress. Yeah, it's yeah. Yes.
Not about production.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
But it's about so if you have like made a short film,
Yes.
or just maybe something, not necessarily like a 3-minute thing, but like maybe a 30-second, 1-minute
Yeah.
thing, is that something that you think would be better to have? Like, I'm always curious what the difference between festival and like Vimeo is.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
is it better to have something that
That's
has
a good question.
been
Yeah.
in a festival
Yeah.
and maybe won an award, or just gone straight online that people can see?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Different producers have different views on this, but personally, if you've done a film and you're hiding it from the world and you're just putting it to festivals, and then you share it with the world a year later, no one really cares. No, I'm not in a bad, like, people are kind of moved on, you know? And yes, obviously having a stamp of approval of winning festivals is like really great, and that can help you kind of, you know, because it just shows to companies, oh, it's a tick, isn't it? It's just saying, you know, that validating their kind of skills. But I think a lot of the time, especially when you're starting out, like, put your work out there, you know? Showcase it, like, and I think a lot of it is about, I think Vimeo is a fantastic tool, and I really like the way it's grown over the years and the things that they've done. It's really great because it gives you instant like access to so many different people, so many different styles. You get to see your peers, you get to promote it, you get to like shout about it. And I'm always a mindset that I feel like if you've got something, yeah, of course send it to festivals. You've done a short, like that's definitely send it to festivals, but also put it out there. There's very few festivals these days that won't accept work if it's already out in the world. I think maybe Berlinade is one of those. So if you want to put your film into festivals, look at those festivals that you want to put it into, see what their criteria is. But most really do these days accept you know, films that are on Vimeo or are out in the world. I think, yeah, and I think also the industry has picked up pace, you know, and if you've kind of done something and then you've kind of done the festival circuit, but you haven't kind of been shouting about it maybe on, I don't know, Instagram, Facebook, Vimeo, stuff like that, like, I don't know, why hide it? I don't really see why you should hide it, unless obviously it is the criteria of the festival that you're desperate to get into, you know. Yeah. Yes. Hello.
Do you have like a specific hashtag or something that you look at on Instagram if you're looking for?
Oh, I just say to anyone, hashtag the crap out of it. Like, honestly, I think the more exposure, the more likes you get. That doesn't, I mean, I know. And I know, like, I hate it as well. Like, you know, in my little spare time that I do ceramics, and it's all a bit awkward, just like hashtagging. You know, you just think, oh, I sound like such a douchebag, you know. But yeah, I would just whatever, put everything on it, and just the more people that you can get seeing it, the better, right? You know. So yeah. Hey. Oh, I'll come to you afterwards. Yeah.
It's kind of a really specific question.
Yeah.
But you mentioned like jobs being pulled halfway through or at the last minute, and I was kind of wondering if you had any advice, like how do you react to that?
I don't think anyone reacts well. I mean, and that's included, like, even when, you know, we get it at, you know, Passion of Strange Beast, we have jobs pulled halfway through, and it's just like, oh my fucking God, like, it's just a huge amount of stress. I think for you guys as, because a lot of you will be self-producing, the same with you if you're doing a project and it cans like halfway through, it's saying to your client, you know, I booked this time off, and that's why it's really important in your deal memo to have a schedule, like when the delivery date is, you know, having kind of check-in points in a schedule. So I think it's really important to break your schedule down into kind of your pre-production, so by that I mean design and storyboarding and animatic, and having WIP dates, and then having an approval date of that. So you know, maybe have, for example, you have 2 weeks for design and pre-production stuff, and at the end of that you have approved. Once they've approved, they can't go back. If they go back, you charge them. Because they changed their mind, they've gone back on their brief. You then, you know, say you've changed your mind, it's going to cost you X, Y, and Z for me to spend another week changing that. And you kind of do those points all the way through your schedule. So you have like WIP dates, and then you have lock dates. And I think it's really important to have those, because then that gives you the power to then, if someone goes back on what they've agreed, to be able to say, you've gone back on what you agreed. Does that kind of help? Yep.
I was just wondering, so how much time should you have between a WIP date and a log date, do you think?
So, okay, so let's just do pre-production as an example. So you got your award on Monday, and then you might have a WIP on Thursday, and then you might on the Friday ask for kind of pre-approve or like feedback to be then. And then the next week you might have another WIP, say on the Tuesday, and then feedback again, maybe on the Wednesday, and then you would have your lock date on the Friday. So you would share with the final of everything that you've done, all those WIPs, all that feedback, everything that you've done. You'd have a lock date on the Friday, and that's when it is approved. So you're say you're approving the design, the look of it, and the animatic of it, and that just means that they can't go back and say like, oh, I really want to change the character, or I really want to, you know, I want to change this, or I want to change that. Or with animatic, I think having animatics is so important when you're self-producing, because it really shows them a rough idea of what the animation is going to end up being, and the timings and stuff like that. And I think it's also really important stressing to clients that you're working with that, like, if they have any issues in the animatic stage, that's when they should flag it, because once you start animating it, it's going to be such a bitch to go back and then change it. I think it's also, you know, if you're 2D, it's about educating clients on how the way you work. So if you're a person that kind of roughs everything out first, and then you do cleanup and colouring, which is kind of industry sort of standard, then it's kind of educating them on that, saying like, you know, once it's all roughed out and that is approved, once we're going to, you know, that animation cannot change. We're then going into cleanup and colouring, and again, you know, you have WIP dates and then, you know, approve. So it's really about kind of putting key markers in your schedules, and being very clear with them about those kind of processes, so that if they then go back on stuff, you have a real clear kind of paper trail of like, you know, you are going back on what you've already approved. So yeah, having a schedule when you're self-producing is really important, and in that deal memo, breaking down your kind of the schedule as well. Is there a question? Does that answer that? Yeah, okay.
Would producers consider someone that hasn't done a film or a kind of longish, like 1 minute piece of work for directing, but they have a lot of smaller pieces?
Yes, yes. I think you're not going to get the big, you know, big jobs, but you know, you'll get a producer that will be like, oh, well, there's a social, like, and I think that's another thing to understand, is like the industry has changed a lot, because the world's changed a lot. Everything is digital, social, you know, your phone and stuff like that, adverts that are 5-10 seconds long these days. So if you can say something quickly in that time frame, in GIFs and stuff, then you could definitely do shorter social stuff, and producers will definitely be looking for that kind of work as well.
So, and you will say that to get the bigger jobs, you need mostly to have a sort of longer piece of work.
Yeah, so what I'm looking for in sort of the emerging talent roster is I'm looking for someone that's done maybe a couple of shorts of their own, and maybe done, you know, either a music video or has done maybe a tiny little commercial project. Yeah, but maybe they might even just have like one short and a couple of GIFs and stuff like that. And then for me, it's like thinking, okay, I feel like their style and what they're doing is really, really interesting, and I want to help them kind of get their first kind of leg into the industry. And I think, that's one thing actually, you just ding. Also what a producer and a production company's job is to do is for their directors is to find work, is to, you know, really sell them and try and promote them and try and build up that portfolio. So for the emerging talent roster people, I'm definitely looking for kind of the smaller projects that kind of they can get their teeth stuck into. So, and I think also it's worth saying that a lot of companies these days do, I mean, I call it dating, but I don't know what other people call it. I use a lot of dating analogies and this kind of stuff. It's like, do a lot of dating where you might really like someone's work and you're really interested in collaborating with them, you've got a perfect project for them, you get in contact with them and you're like, hey, do you want to work on this project? And it's kind of seeing if it's a good fit, if you work well together, because you don't want to ever get onto a roster and then just be like, oh, I fucking hate these people. They're knobs. You know, you want to feel like you're in a team, that you're on the same side, that you're working together, because that's what it is. It's like you want to feel like you're part of that team. The producer's role is to kind of build that team and to make sure that everyone feels like they are part of that team to kind of make that happen. So that's part of our role as well, is like actively selling, actively looking. And yeah, I do use a lot of directors who I'm huge fans of, and I just feel like, hey, I've got this project, do you want to work with me and collaborate on it? And that, yeah, could be, I've just seen a couple of their GIFs or shorter things as well. Okay. I'll go there and then I'll go there.
There might be a quick question,
Yeah.
but do you know any like residencies on the top of your head? And
Yeah.
how long does it take to put a pitch together?
I don't really know many residencies, I'm sorry. But yeah. Pitching, I would probably say it's probably less detailed than something like this, because you're probably trying to pitch yourself as an artist, right? Rather than pitching maybe necessarily to do a film. So it's more about talking to them about your aims and ambitions as an artist, as a director, and what you kind of want to get out of that residency. Sorry, I can't be more useful. But
No, that's fine.
yeah.
No, I mean, I guess with the pitch thing, it's also to how long it take in a production. It's not in terms of a residency.
Sorry, say that again.
I think I combined the questions too much. We've had a production with the fashion project.
Yeah, the pitch. Yeah.
Pitch. How long would that take within a company?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, well, if we have our own way, we would obviously love to have 2 weeks to pitch. But I'd say sometimes, yeah, I mean, we have sometimes have a couple of days to pitch and put that level of work into a couple of days. So it really depends on the client, but usually when you're applying for residencies and film funding, you'll know of the kind of deadlines, you'll have a bit more time to kind of put together. But yeah, pitching commercially is tight, yeah. That's right. Yes, sorry.
Yeah, my question is about the greenhouse.
Yes.
So once you find someone who like you're happy with and
Yeah.
you want to sort of champion,
Yeah.
what happens next? Like how do you develop them? What's the process?
Yeah, so a lot of those people we will also have as crew as well, so they'll be working and we'll be developing them that way. But also it's active sales, so it's like going out and really selling those people to agencies. It's trying to put their work out there as much as possible, getting them exposure, which they might not necessarily get, or it's just harder. You know, when you're trying to work as crew and, you know, push yourself as director. That's like a lot of work goes into that. So we have a whole sales team that do that. You know, I go out and do sales. Kitty, EP of Strange Beast, goes out and do sales. We have like a head of sales as well across the two companies. And I think for us, it's, we all kind of work very organically as a team. We might outwardly be sort of branded separately, and that's just makes it easier for clients and agencies to understand what we are. You know, Passion is a bit more kind of high-end storytelling, character design. Strange Beast is more the quirky, like illustrative, design-based stuff. And then the emerging talent, the reason why we wanted to separate that out is just to kind of give people a platform where they are seen, but also internally, all those briefs, all those scripts, all those sales trips, all those things like that, it's all the same people doing that. We're all talking openly if a script comes in, and it, you know, we talk about all the different directors from all the different things and who might be appropriate for that. So a lot of it is that. Then it is just the support of having a team that pitch. So we have pitch designers that put together the treatments. We're then, you know, finding artists that kind of help them do those treatments. We're liaising with the agencies in terms of budget, schedules, negotiating rates, all that kind of stuff. And then once, if the pitch awards, then we are, you know, we're building the crew. We're we're kind of like the admin people. We're like doing all that kind of extra stuff so that the director can then really focus on being creative and creating work. Which, you know, if you are self-producing, which a lot of you will be, you know how much time all that extra stuff takes. So, yeah. Hey.
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
With the pictures,
Yeah.
so if you're doing like 2 weeks worth of work,
Yeah.
in 2 days, do they give you a budget?
No. I wish. No. Unfortunately not. We do it for free. It's obviously that's risk. It's a lot of risk. Yeah, it's a lot of work, and that's why, thankfully, in the UK, the companies are only allowed to have 3 companies pitching on it. In the US, can be a bit more, and we will ask how many people are pitching on this, and if we find out like 7 people are pitching it, we're not going to pitch on it because our chances is just, and the amount of money you can see probably like the amount of money that goes into pitching. So how it works is that we obviously do it for free, as in like the new business team and stuff like that. It's all and the director does it for free. But if we're hiring like character designers or illustrators to do stuff, we're obviously going to pay them because they're freelancing, whereas we're all kind of trying to win the work and build more work in our portfolios.
Makes sense.
Yeah, cool. Yes.
I was just going to ask if
Yeah.
you have any advice on like show reels?
Yes.
What you like to
Yes, that's a good question. When I'm looking for crew, I actually really like it when people have on each of their clips like what they did. So sometimes like I'll look at like for example like a 2D reel and I'm a bit like, I don't really, like, it's great, but what did you actually do in that? Were you clean up and colouring? Were you animator? If it's CG, were you modeler? Were you animator? Were you lighting, previs? CG, I think everyone is kind of more one thing specifically, whereas 2D you're kind of probably doing a bit of both. You might be doing cleaning up and colouring, you might be doing animating, it's a bit more. So on those show reels I do actually like to see like on their clips what they did. Director, and I think it's useful if you are building up a director reel is to have maybe 2 separate reels, just to show your directing work and your crew work as well. Or if you don't have much body of work and you are just like really starting out, you can have a combination of your director work and your crew work. But once you start to build a bit more of a body of work as crew, I would say, try and separate those 2 out. More questions? Yes.
So you said that animation has the tendency of changing like what people actually like,
Mhm.
fashion in a sense. So how do you understand what is in trend, because animation requires a lot of work, a lot of crew, a lot of budget. It's not like in fashion one color is changed to another one and the budget is not really affected that much. With animation, it's either vegetarian or 2D. The time
I think things do gradually change. I think you kind of get a sense, and I think for people who, you know, when you're looking at a lot of work, as you know, I've probably watched thousands and thousands of animation shorts and stuff like that a year, like you do get a sense of like the trends that are starting to kind of like thread through. So I think it is hard to predict, and as an artist it's hard to predict, but I think it's about being engaged in what your peers are creating, what wins at festivals, what's getting work, you know, who the studios have on their rosters, what styles they do. Obviously, you know, it's really hard to predict it and to change it, but it's just trying to be aware of where you sit within everything and how your work sits within everything. And it's just, yeah, does that kind of help? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. More questions? Oh, are we done? Yeah, sorry. I'll stop talking.
But thank you so much for coming in.